Thank you, Presiding Officer. The benefit of being in this Parliament for so long is you get to see patterns of behaviour over time. The last 16 years of the SNP have indeed been instructive. What I have learnt is that these are not isolated incidents or even, at the most generous interpretation, mistakes. This is a systematic approach to government, and it is an approach characterised by secrecy and a lack of transparency. So a bit of reflection might be useful. Let me take you back to the Parliament's Committee on Handling of Harassment Complaints, for shorthand, the Salmon Committee. The war that went on to get information from the government. WhatsApp and text messages discovered only after several requests. The lack of information on the legal advice taken by the Scottish Government, in which counsel said the case should be abandoned because they were going to lose, never mind the cost to the taxpayer. Months of argument and ultimately motions of no confidence in this chamber for John Swinney to finally give a sight of some of the documents required. And I have to say, the approach to the COVID inquiry bears remarkable similarity. The government tell us how many thousands of pages they have supplied, but not the quality of the information. With the Salmon inquiry, many of the thousands of pages we were provided with were either blank or so heavily redacted all you could see were black lines. Secrecy is the SNP's modus operandi. Look at Ferguson's and the award of that disastrous shipbuilding contract, information withheld from the Parliament's Audit Committee. Or what about Circularity Scotland, created so ministers did not need to be answerable for decisions about the bottle return scheme? And so it goes on. I am reminded that Nicola Sturgeon first committed to a public inquiry in May 2020, and I commend her for that. She knew then, and subsequently confirmed, that she would disclose all government emails, private emails and WhatsApp messages to the inquiry. And frankly, I find it appalling that this has not been complied with, and that she appears to have manually deleted messages, a point on which she is unwilling to confirm or deny. It would appear that deleting messages, though, has been going on an industrial scale, and not just by politicians. We have Jason Leach, the National Clinical Director, was at it too. So let me just ask, how many messages from Jason Leach, or Nicola Sturgeon, or John Swinney, or Humza Yousaf have been transcribed to the official record, as the Deputy First Minister said they would be? Then there is the First Minister and his old mobile phone, and I'm delighted that he found it and is handing it over. Can he possibly tell us, through whoever's replying for the government, were the inquiry told that they were initially missing? And is it only because he discovered an old mobile that he can now provide messages? And can ministers hand over emails from their SNP email accounts? I know they use them as a means of avoiding scrutiny. Have any of these been handed over to the inquiry? And from which ministers and special advisers? Now, I welcome the provision of all legal advice being handed over to the UK inquiry. Can the Deputy First Minister confirm that this is without qualification? After all, it should be for the inquiry to judge what is relevant, not those who have a vested interest in protecting themselves in terms of the outcome. And it's not just individuals that have withheld information, it's the government itself. And I understand the key document on the decision to send older people untested into care homes appears to have gone missing. I genuinely think that the SNP government, particularly ministers, have decided, and this is how cynical it is, that to be criticised for being secretive and not sharing information is better than to reveal the content of those messages. It is so disappointing that the Scottish Government have told half-truths and had to be invited to correct the record by the UK COVID inquiry. It is embarrassing. As Amar Anwar, representing the family, said, the Scottish Government's failure to provide clarity, constant changing timelines and excuses, combined with the redundant excuse of confidentiality, inflames a belief that you are obstructing the search for truth. I couldn't agree with him more. But I want to turn to the comments made by the First Minister and Deputy First Minister in this chamber. In May and at least twice in June, the First Minister promises to be open and transparent. It will all be absolutely handed over to the COVID inquiries and handed over to them in full. In October, in full became any potentially relevant information, with the greatest respect that for the inquiry to decide is absolutely essential, and it's not for government to decide. And it's clear from the exchanges on the 31st of October and the 2nd of November that there are entirely contradictory timelines and information provided by the First Minister and the Deputy First Minister. It would appear to anybody watching this that the Ministerial Code has been breached. The question for me is, was it a genuine mistake, or is it a deliberate attempt to cover up? And I have to say, given what I have seen over the years, secrecy trumps all with this government. This should be referred for investigation to consider whether Parliament has been misled. Presiding Officer, this is an important debate. It is about accountability and standards in public office, as Martin Whitfield spoke about, and importantly, it is about getting truth and justice for COVID-bereaved families, for the older people discharged to care homes without testing, to the families unable to visit loved ones in care, for the children whose education was compromised and are still suffering the consequences of that today. All of them deserve answers. This is a matter of trust and accountability, and I have to say in closing that I am so disappointed with the Deputy First Minister's amendment. It fails to apologise or even acknowledge that they have given incorrect information to this chamber. It is complacent and it is insulting to those who lost loved ones. I finish, Presiding Officer, by repeating what Anas Sarwar said at the end of his comments. What do the SNP have to hide?
I call